This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome you guys back to another episode of GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started here today, I want to make sure I remind you guys, as always, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top whenever we drop our latest stuff. If you could as well, please give us a 5-star rating. Write us a nice review. It would be very appreciated. Allow us to see what you guys like, what you guys don't like, ways you can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can reach out to us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can discuss, we can debate, all that fun stuff. And thank you very, very much to the NFL, because it was looking very dry out here in these sports streets. I mean, obviously, as we've discussed many times, and obviously as you guys all know at this point, basically all sports are canceled due to the coronavirus, COVID-19. Most people can't even leave their house, depending on where you live. I mean, well, you can maybe leave your house, but then obviously there's certain places that got curfews and all that stuff. So yeah, it all depends on where you're living, where you're from. I know certain cities is more strict than others at this point in time, but like I said, everything's still kind of a work in progress with this country, because it doesn't seem like we as a people were properly prepared to deal with something like this. And so here we are. But in the midst of that, we were wondering where we were going to get our sports fill from. And luckily for us, NFL free agency decided to come through and give us enough content to last a week. And the first 2 days of free agency, we had there are so many different things, so many different people that are signed, that got traded, that got re-signed, that maybe are still potentially out there, because not everybody's been signed. There's still a couple big names to be signed at this point. But, I mean, the name everyone was thinking, talking about, discussing, wondering where he'd end up, has officially made his decision, and that being none other than one Tom Brady. Based on everything different reporters I've heard, and obviously it's not official yet, because I guess nothing can technically be official until Wednesday, I guess, when you guys hear this, though a lot of stuff is still kind of up in the air because of the whole physical stuff, and that might put some of these deals kind of sort of, or some of these trades kind of sort of on the shelf for the time being. They may be announced, but they may not be officially gone through, just because obviously these guys can't really travel yet. These guys can't really meet with team doctors. It's not safe for that yet. So technically, these deals are still kind of pending, if you will, but they're agreed to, more or less. So this one is not at that level yet, just because the Bucs or Tom Brady, no one's officially said that this is where he's going. But he put out on his Instagram earlier that he was leaving the Patriots. And then obviously there were a couple places that people were talking about. Maybe the Chargers, though. It seems like the Chargers kind of backed off. The Bucs, as we talked about, were an option. Maybe the Raiders, but they signed Mariota, not necessarily to be their starter, but they signed him. Panthers, in theory, if they were going to trade Cam, which it sounds like they might do. I don't know. We'll talk about that. But then they went out and signed Teddy. So there's that. Obviously, again, you could always go back to the Patriots. But yeah, the Bucs seemed like an option, just because I don't know how tied to Jameis Winston Bruce Arians was, and obviously we know now that he really wasn't that tied to him at all. But yes, I mean, obviously coming off the season that Jameis had, where, again, threw a lot of yards, threw a lot of touchdowns, and also threw a lot of interceptions, and it's hard to win games when you turn the ball over that much. Colts, random, but like Colts were another team that people thought Tom Brady could go to. And they have another new quarterback, which, again, we will get to in a second. But, yeah, it seemed like I said, Bruce Arians didn't give him exactly a glowing review when the season ended, so you thought it was obviously a chance that that they may move on and go in a different direction. And obviously when Tom Brady becomes available, you at least have to listen. Or I guess not necessarily listen, but you at least have to pursue. And that is what they decided to do. They being the Bucs, obviously, like I said, it's not official yet, but in all intents and purposes, it sounds like Tom Brady will be a Buccaneer. And apparently they're going to unveil some New Jersey, so that'd be kind of cool if he was the one to unveil them. I don't know if that's what their plan is already, but if it's not, Tampa, that's what you guys should do. Because obviously you're going into a completely new era of Bucs football. Though, I mean, again, it's Tom Brady at the end of his career. So, not exactly, this isn't exactly prime Tom Brady, but again, still Tom Brady, still arguably the GOAT, depending on who you ask. Was I don't want to say biggest free agent on the market in terms of quarterbacks, but he's definitely one of them. So again, this is not some little thing. This is a pretty big deal. Everyone was kind of wondering where he was going to end up, and obviously we think we have our answer. But yeah, from the Bucs' perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Their offense is filled with weapons. Obviously, I don't know. They may need some work on that O-line, but they have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, one of the better wide receiver duos in the league at this point. And there's not many people that could compete with that. They have O.J. Howard, who, again, as we talked about, is a tight end who hasn't reached his full potential yet, but you know how much Tom Brady likes his tight ends. So now he may be the person to unlock that. Also have Cameron Brate, so they can still do some of the two tight end stuff that the Patriots have done over the years. Ronald Jones isn't a bad running back. He had his moments throughout this past season, and again, with a quarterback like Tom Brady, getting them into advantageous situations. Not that Jameis necessarily didn't, but again, having a quarterback like Tom Brady is a big difference than because he knows he can manipulate the defense in certain ways, maybe get Ronald Jones into some, like I said, advantageous situations, advantageous runs. So maybe you can help him open up, and then yeah, obviously from their standpoint, again, he's a quarterback who doesn't really turn the ball over as much. Obviously, was he great last year? No. Some of that could be predicated, or some of that could be placed on the fact that his weapons on the outside last year weren't that great, and obviously they're 10 times better with the Bucs currently. But again, he's definitely a quarterback on the decline to a degree, but at the very least, he's not a quarterback that's prone to a lot of turnovers, and that's, like I said, that's the biggest thing. If Jameis even throws, say, like 20 interceptions instead of 30, the Bucs maybe win 2 more games, maybe even 3, and now instead of 7-9, they're 9-7, 10-6, maybe sneak into a playoff spot. You never know. So that's kind of what the Bucs are going for, and also the Super Bowl is in Tampa next year. I'm not going to say they're Super Bowl bound because that would be a little crazy at this point in time, but I mean, a team that's hosted Super Bowl has never played it, and obviously Tom Brady's known for going to the Super Bowl, so you at least have to believe it's on the table. Again, no guarantee that they'll get there, but you at least gotta think about it, and that's not something that the Bucs would have had. I mean, people believing that they are a team that could get to the Super Bowl before Tom Brady. If they signed a lot of other quarterbacks, Phillip Rivers, Teddy Bridgewater, re-sign Jameis, like a lot of there's no way you thought like, oh yeah, this team probably could go to the Super Bowl, but because of the fact that you have Tom Brady, he's a guy that gets to the playoffs every year. Though again, different team, different coach, different situation. But he's a guy who got to the playoffs every year, gets to the Super Bowl a lot. You always have to think they can. Not to say they will, because obviously they did in this past season, but you at least have to think they can. But yeah, so Tom Brady on the move. It sounds like. He's not the only quarterback on the move. As I mentioned, Teddy Bridgewater going to the Panthers. Signed a, believe, 3-year, $63 million deal to go there. So they get their new quarterback of the future, question mark? Because Teddy's 27. Yeah, he turned 27, so he turned 28 to November. Again, signed a 3-year deal. Gets $24 million in year one. $33 million in total. Guaranteed from Tom Pelissero. And good for him, just because, again, this is a guy that had lost his starting job in Minnesota due to a severe knee injury. Had been the backup to Drew Brees for a couple years. Did well this season, won all his starts. Though, I mean, again, team game. I'm not one of those guys that puts a lot of emphasis on quarterback wins, because, again, there's more to winning a game than just the play of the quarterback. Though, obviously, if he plays well, helps. But yeah, so he signs a new deal. But then now that leaves the Panthers with a decision to make on Cam Newton, because obviously if you're signing him, you're not signing him to be the backup. So that means you need to move on from Cam Newton. But it's kind of weird because now they lost all trade leverage because you can't keep him. So no one's going to give up a lot for him. So you either trade him for like pennies on the dollar, which, I mean, we'll get to Bill O'Brien in a couple of segments, but that's kind of what he did. But yeah, so then you got to trade him for pennies on the dollar, or maybe even have to cut him. And like that's like that doesn't seem that advantageous from the Panthers' standpoint to do something like that. But hey, we'll see what they end up doing. But like I said, them choosing to sign a new quarterback before they got rid of Cam kind of hurts all the leverage they have in any trade negotiations, because everyone knows you already have a new quarterback. So no one's, if there's a situation in your quarterback room that doesn't affect them, so they're not just gonna take on. They're not just gonna take him on and give up a lot for him. That doesn't make any sense, and that's what I'm saying. I understand completely. So, yeah, so we'll see what they do. The Colts have a new quarterback, it seems like. They signed Phillip Rivers to, I think it's only a 1-year deal. But yeah, it sounds a 1-year deal with the Colts, $25 million. Again, I guess they decided the Jacoby Brissett experiment is over. I mean, fair to him. Though, you could argue how much better is Phillip Rivers than Jacoby Brissett at this point in time, because obviously, if James wasn't turning the ball over so much, people would have talked about Phillip doing the same thing. I mean, he started all 16 games last year. He's usually a guy and that's actually for the 14th consecutive season. Again, he's a guy that's pretty durable when it comes to that. He threw 23 touchdowns, but also threw 20 interceptions. And again, it's not like he had bad weapons. You have Keenan Allen, you have Mike Williams, you have Hunter Henry, who's coming back. He wasn't like all the way there. I mean, he wasn't there like the whole season. He missed some games. You had Austin Eckler, who was great. Melvin Gordon, who was solid once he got his legs back under him. But again, they had Austin Eckler, who was arguably the best running back out of the backfield last year. Probably not named McCaffrey, but outside of him, he was an excellent receiver. So they had weapons. Their defense wasn't bad, but again, all those interceptions kind of doomed them. So that's what I'm saying. You kind of wonder how much of an improvement is he from Jacoby Brissett? Because if you're paying a guy that much money, you're assuming that you're trying to improve on your quarterback play. And if you look at Jacoby Brissett's numbers from last year, they're not bad. Again, not great. So I see why they at least felt like they could move on. And I mean, I don't know for certain if Jacoby Brissett is a long-term starter in this league, but I know he missed a couple games. So he only missed one game? I thought he missed more than that. All right. Okay. My bad. Yeah, so missed one game. In 15 games, threw for under 3,000 yards, which isn't really that good. 18 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. A 61% completion percentage. Only a 6.6 yards per attempt. Passer rating of 88, which is all right. I know he was useful in the run game, if I can find those stats for you guys. Yeah, over 200 yards, 20 first downs on the ground. What else? Did he score? It doesn't say. That's kind of annoying. No, where is it? Oh, yeah, this is advanced rushing. Yeah, I didn't need that. Yeah, so he scored 4 touchdowns on the ground. There it is. So, yeah, that was useful with his legs. And obviously, that's not something you're going to get from Phillip. So, that's an interesting aspect of their offense that you got to change up. Because even with Andrew Luck, they still had a guy who, again, not exactly Lamar Jackson, but he was mobile and could move around. So that's kind of a big deal, just having somebody that move, and obviously Phillip is not that. So, again, we'll have to see how that affects their offense a little bit. But yeah, they decided to move on from Jacoby and move him back to the backup role, which he's maybe better suited for long term. But again, that's Indianapolis' decision, not mine. But yeah, so we'll see how that works out. Because again, you get that. You go out and get Phillip Rivers, assuming he's building an improvement. And I think what they finished 79 last year. So you're looking at your division. It's basically up in the air. The Titans, they're 1 year wonder. The Texans, who we'll talk about, Bill O'Brien's trying to ruin that team. And then the Jaguars are in the rebuild mode, it seems like. So the division's there for the taking. And you're hoping Phillip Rivers can be the guy that gets you over the hump. And we'll find out if he is, or if he's been another guy that's just on the decline. Because once Father Time comes, he's undefeated. So there's not really much coming back from that. But yeah, so that was just some of the quarterback movement that we've had over these first 2 days. We still, like I said, we'll talk about Cam later on. We still have him potentially to be moved. James, see where he goes. Andy Dalton, see where he goes. Yeah, those are probably the main ones left because Dak got franchised, and Mariota went to Oakland. See if Derek Carr gets moved. He probably won't. And then Tannehill got franchise tagged. So again, it seems like Dalton, Cam, Jameis, those are kind of the guys that are left to see who fills out these last little moves and fill out these last little quarterback spots. Before, again, obviously the draft is coming up. So the guys can fill out this spot there, but you can't just have a rookie and no one else. Like they gotta at least bring a vet in, you would think. But again, we shall see. But yeah, so when we come back, we're going to talk about more of day one, some of the biggest moves, biggest trades, biggest signings, stuff like that. So yeah, we'll talk about all that stuff right after the break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Day one. What happened? A lot, honestly. I would say probably the biggest thing, or at least the biggest, they call it the biggest stir and the biggest amount of hysteria on social media, was the DeAndre Hopkins trade, which no one saw coming, unless, I guess, apparently, after the fact. Some reporters, mainly from the Texans, kind of tweeted out that there was a rift between DeAndre and Bill O'Brien, which may have led to this, though. Even still with that, I don't know exactly if anyone expected this to happen, like, yesterday, well, I guess not today, yesterday, or I guess when you guys are hearing this Monday, so 2 days ago. But yeah, that kind of caught me by surprise. I know when I saw David Johnson got traded to the Texans, I was like, all right, that's weird because they have Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson, but whatever. Maybe they think he's useful. Obviously, Carlos Hyde basically not used on passing downs that much, so at least it gives them a guy that could be in for both. And then obviously, as we saw, he kind of looked like he lost a step a little bit last year, at least with the Cardinals. Again, we'll see if being with the Texans gives him new life. But from Cardinals' standpoint, I understood why they would move on from him. But then it came through that the compensation they got back. And then when you see that they got back DeAndre Hopkins, you're like, whoa, hold on, time out. What's going on here? How does David Johnson get you DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is, at worst, not including Antonio Brown anymore. Because, I mean, though, there's reports that they're trying to get him into Tampa. We'll see how that goes. They really don't need him. That would be a mess. Don't do that, Tampa. You don't need him that badly. But, not including him, he's what? At worst, the third best receiver. And I don't think he's that low. I think he's probably 2. But, like, if Michael Thomas and maybe Julio are probably the only guys you can put above him at this point. Obviously, you guys are more than welcome to tell me if you believe I'm wrong about that. But from my standpoint, I don't know anyone else that you could put above him. So again, at worst, third best receiver in the league. And the third best receiver in the league can only net you David Johnson and a second round pick, I believe is the guy. So yeah, the full trade details were Texans get DeAndre Hopkins. Texans get David Johnson, a second and a fourth. And then the Cardinals get DeAndre Hopkins in the fourth. So they swap fourths and they add in a second round pick. Which, I mean, in fairness, Texans, very minimal picks over these next few years. Which, I mean, we will get to as to why that is. Because they traded a lot of their picks for other people. But hey, is what it is. But yeah, so they don't really have that many picks. So again, this helps them in that regard. But, like, what's the plan here? And obviously, maybe they just think Randall Cobb will be able to make up for the fact that DeAndre Hopkins is gone. And, I mean, he's basically their go-to guy on every big passing down. He's also their most reliable receiver because the other receiver, Will Fuller, is, unfortunately for him, always hurt with something. There's no guarantee he'll be there week in and week out as opposed to DeAndre, even though he's a little bit banged up this year. He's still going to be out there most games. And obviously still going to be contributing at a high level. So, it seems odd. Didn't have any issues with Deshaun. So, again, makes no sense to me. But, from a Cardinals standpoint, hey, I mean, they have Fitz. They had Christian Kirk. They drafted Andy Isabella and Hakeem Butler last year, though I think Butler was hurt all this past year, if I remember correctly. But yeah, they probably needed number one because again, this is last year, I think. Though I thought last year was his last year, so we'll see how long. I guess it's up to Larry to see how long he wants to play. But yeah, so then they probably needed number one, and again, DeAndre Hopkins is one of the best number ones you could get for again not that much compensation, in my opinion. Especially when we talk about another receiver who was traded later that day, the conversation looks even worse in comparison. But hey, you trade a running back you didn't really want anymore, get a top 3 at worst receiver, you do that 10 times out of 10. I don't care what draft pick you give up. But again, the highest draft pick they gave was a second. So, that's nothing. So yeah, Cardinals are at least looking up for next year. Kyler Murray, probably going to be a highly coveted fantasy quarterback, which, I mean, I don't understand. You have DeAndre Hopkins on your team that makes you immensely better. And obviously not to say that Deshaun wouldn't have been good without him, but we see how good he was with him. And not to say that Kyler Murray is exactly at that level yet, but, I mean, he was the number one pick for a reason. So, and again, he was good last year with not near as good weapons on the outside. Obviously, you add in DeAndre Hopkins, that changes your whole offense. So, again, good for him. Weird move for the Texans. We'll talk about the Texans more in the next segment. But, yeah, so then that happened. Stephon Diggs got traded later, which you kind of, I mean, there was a little rift between him and, I mean, I guess a little rift between Kirk and all their receivers, because I know Thielen came out and spoke out against him. Oh, maybe not against him directly, but just about, like, the play calling and, like, the stuff. And Stephon Diggs said he wanted to trade, but then didn't say he wanted to trade. And then Kirk signed a 2-year extension with the Vikings, which, hey, good for him. I mean, if nothing else, he will be, to quote the saying Bomani Jones from ESPN likes to use, he'll be a legend at the bank, which, I mean, hey, Not everybody's going to go into the Hall of Fame. But if you're not, you might as well make as much money as you can while you're playing, and that's exactly what Kirk Cousins is doing. So shout out to him and his agent, because they've done a great job of getting Kirk as much money as he possibly could over the course of his career so far. So, like I said, shout out to them. But yeah, so it was just funny, like not that long after that, Stephon Diggs tweeted something about like looking forward to a new beginning or something like that, and everyone was like, what? And then a couple hours later, he's traded. He got traded to the Bills, which, I mean, I'm not certain how much better of a situation that is. And also, at least Minnesota's a cold weather city that you play indoors. Like Buffalo, you play outside. So that's probably not going to be fun. But hey, here's what it is. The Bills get themselves a high-quality receiver. I mean, he's had, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Over 100 catches 2 seasons ago, only 63 this past year. But again, averaging 18 yards a catch, that's good. Only 6 touchdowns, though. But, I mean, on the Bills' offense, that basically was just John Brown, Cole Beasley, or bust. Nice to have another weapon. Obviously, he's a really good route runner. So that'll make things easier for Josh Allen to get him the ball, though. Again, Josh Allen, not exactly the most accurate quarterback, so we'll see how much Stephon Diggs likes him. Because if he didn't Kirk's accurate, but he just doesn't like to always push the ball down the field, depending. Because he does throw a nice deep ball, but again, he can be a little conservative at times. And obviously, he's not as elusive under pressure as Josh Allen is, though, again, he's a little reckless, but again, a hard guy to get on the ground, as we've seen. But yeah, so have him now throwing to you. Again, not necessarily sure if that's an improvement, but at least something different. And you're in a situation where the team's looking up. The Vikings are kind of, not that they're not looking up, they're still going to be a potential playoff team, but they're kind of just, they're not on the rise. Like, they're kind of like where they're at now. The Bills are a team, especially with Tom Brady gone. I mean, you could be looking at them running the division soon, though. Again, the Dolphins definitely have something to say about that. They're going out and signing everybody, it seems like. Obviously, they have a lot of money, so it makes sense. But yeah, so then you had that. He got traded for, so as I was talking about before. So you see what DeAndre Hopkins did. You're like, all right, there's no way Stephon Diggs can get you more than that. And apparently it can. They traded him for 4 draft picks. The Buffalo sent a first, a fifth, and a sixth in this year's draft, and a fourth next year, while getting back a seventh and obviously Stephon Diggs. So, and the fifth, the sixth, the fourth, whatever. But if you can, getting a first round pick for anybody is a great trade. And the Texans couldn't even do that for DeAndre Hopkins, who is, I don't want to say much better because that sounds disrespectful, but he's a better receiver than Stephon Diggs, bar none, point blank, period. And they couldn't even get a first round pick out of the Cardinals. Again, Cardinals were going to trade the 8th, or they were going to trade a top 10 pick, which I completely understand because they have a lot of holes they need to fill, mainly on that offensive line. And who knows, they may even end up drafting CeeDee Lamb still, because that was talked about before. I mean, that'd be a nasty wide receiver group. And again, they need some offensive line help to protect Kyler, so that's probably why they weren't going to give up the first round pick, just because they there's a drop off. I mean, at any position between the elite guys and like the good guys. Like there's a reason why certain guys go in the first round, certain guys go in the second, third, fourth, whatever round after that. So if you have a top 10 pick, you're getting in what is believed to be an elite level player, and with there being like 4 really good tackles and then like a little bit of a drop off, the being 8, you're basically guaranteeing yourself one of the 4. So, and again, if they even chose to do that, they might even go receiver. And again, if you go on receiver, no one's really going to pick a receiver before the Cardinals, I think. I mean, you never really know, but I don't think anybody's going to pick a receiver before the Cardinals. So then they may even have to pick out all the receivers. So that's Judy, Lamb, Ruggs, who else? Mims, Denzel Mims, they like him. Jalen Reagor, Justin Jefferson. Yeah, there's more than enough names out there. Chenault, they really love Chenault. Obviously, he's a little bit banged up, but hey, so that happened. So shout out, good for the Bills. They gave up a lot for him, so don't know about that. But if he improves their offense, then give him a first round pick. It's fine, as we saw. The Cowboys did it a couple years ago. Their offense drastically improved with Amari Cooper, and they ended up having to pay him. 5 years, $100 million. They gave him an extension. Or they signed. I guess he was a free agent, so not an extension, but they signed him to that deal. Though it seems like it's really 2 years, $40 million. Then every year after that, it's kind of just a wait and see kind of thing. NFL contracts are weird the way they break them down. But a long story short, it's a good, nice extension for Amari Cooper. So shout out to him. Obviously, seemed like he wanted to remain a Cowboy, and obviously they were able to keep him. So that's the thing. Obviously, when you're in a scenario where you're going to lose Byron Jones, which they lost to the Dolphins for big money, and that no state income tax, which might have been a factor for Tom Brady, may very well been a factor for Byron Jones. It seemed like he was just going to go to the highest bidder, more or less, as opposed to Amari. Apparently, they said Washington offered him more money. We don't know exactly what the number was, I don't think, but they said they offered him more money, and he was like, "Nah, I'm good." Which, in fairness, I would choose Dak over Dwayne Haskins at this point in time as well. Though I'm still not a believer in Dak's a top 10 guy, but he's a solid quarterback. You could do worse, let me put it that way. And in my opinion, Dwayne Haskins is worse, at least at this point in time. Not to say he can't surpass him, but right now, Dwayne Haskins is not a better quarterback than Dak. So why would I go down in quarterback if I don't have to? So I see that. So yeah. So shout out to Amari Cooper getting his money. They talked about Byron Jones got paid. He was obviously the biggest corner on the market, and he got paid like it. He got made the highest paid corner in the league. A 5-year, $82.5 million deal, $57 million guaranteed, $40 million in the first 2 years for him. So it's obviously front loaded. Obviously, he's a guy who's about to be 28, I think. So again, not exactly a young guy though. In fairness, most young good corners don't hit the free agent market. So there is that. But yeah, he got paid like the top cornerback on the market, which is, I assume, is what he was looking for. So no complaints from him there. Who else happened? The Colts traded their first round pick out to the 49ers for DeForest Buckner, which was kind of interesting just because you could argue not named Nick Bosa, Buckner was their best defensive lineman. But when they paid Armstead, they probably weren't. You can't just give everybody big money on defensive line. So they traded him, and obviously, again, you get a first-round pick back for anybody. That works, and as a team for the 49ers, who don't have a second, third, or fourth-round pick, I believe. They have 2 firsts now, so it gives them some flexibility if they want to be able to trade back, recoup some of those picks. Now they have a chance. With 1 first-round pick, especially with it being at 31, you're never going to get that much if anybody wants to trade back up at the end of the first round. 13? All right, you might could work with something. And you still probably end up getting a first-round pick back if you trade 13. Just because you can trade down in the 20s, get a 20 pick, and then maybe get a second, third, something like that. So, it gives the 49ers more flexibility. Obviously, again, I think they're going to miss DeForest Buckner a little bit because, again, that pressure in the middle makes things a little bit easier for the guys on the edge, i.e. D Ford, Nick Bosa. But, again, they have Armstead still. I think Solomon Thompson's still there. He was a first-round pick. See if he can replace him. Obviously, it's going to be hard to replace DeForest Buckner. But then again, from the Colts standpoint, they needed some D-line help. They got that. Again, had to give a first-round pick for it. But again, you have to pay to get good players, whether it's money or draft capital, and that's obviously what the Colts were willing to do. And that's just some of the deals. There were a lot more deals. Obviously, again, I could spend the whole show talking about every team and the deals that they've done. I'm not going to do that at this point in time. I'm going to give you an overview of some of the biggest stuff. But yeah, there was a lot more deals that were done. Some mid-tier, mid-level kind of deals. That was the only one. The big guy that's probably still out there at the moment is Clowney, who hasn't been signed yet, which is interesting. And then I guess you got him. You have guys that could be traded, like Yannick Ngakoue, still probably going to get traded at some point. But yes, it's mainly just the pass rush that I left. Some mid-tier corners, mid-tier receivers, Robbie Anderson. And then we'll have to see what happens with the rest of the quarterback movement. So still a lot to be done with the NFL free agency period. So not over yet, but again, a lot of movement already in these first 2 days. And a lot of big names going to new teams. And also, speaking of the Byron Jones and the Dolphins have paid money to a lot of guys so far. This is the last thing I'm going to touch on before I move on to the Texans and what exactly it is that they're doing. Yes, they signed Byron Jones, signed Shaq Lawson from the Bills, signed Kyle Van Noy, signed Jordan Howard, signed Camus Grugier-Hill, both from the formerly of the Eagles. So yeah, they're not afraid to get. And again, they had a lot of money to give out, but they're not afraid to give out money. Not afraid to go out and sign free agents. So their team's going to look much different at this time. I mean, than it did last year. So we'll see how that goes for them. But they've given out some pretty decent money. These aren't just like cheap little. I know the Camus deal's a 1-year deal, but they're not just giving out just any old deals. And also, so that's probably some biggest ones. I know the Eagles paid big money to another defensive lineman, which is that necessarily what they needed? Probably not. They probably need more help at the corner receiver position. But Javon Hargrave, based on a lot of things that NFL people were saying and Steelers people were saying, he's a very good defensive tackle, not necessarily a nose tackle per se, because he can rush the passer. He's, I think, from PFF, he's one of the best graded interior defensive linemen in terms of pressures, hurry, stuff like that. So having him next to Fletcher Cox makes life a lot easier on Fletcher Cox. That's been their biggest issue. One of the biggest issues for the Eagles is that they've just had a mismatch of different defensive tackles they tried to pair with Fletcher Cox over the last couple of years. They've all been banged up. There's Timmy Jernigan, Malik Jackson, different guys they tried to mix in there, haven't really panned out. So they hope Javon Hargrave can be that guy to kind of solidify that spot. I think he's 27, so he's going to be there for things like a 3-year deal. So they hope it's going to be there for the next couple years. And Malik Jackson will be coming back, still Brandon Graham, still Derek Barnett. Like, they still have a lot of guys on the defensive line, but the Eagles like to build through the trenches, and they're doing a good job of continuing to do that with, again, going after a guy to help pair with Fletcher Cox. But yeah, like I said, a lot of moves were made. Raiders signed some guys. Giants signed some. Like every team's done something more or less. So Packers did stuff. It's just like I said, it'd be impossible to go over every move in totality. But again, if a lot of stuff's happened, and thank goodness for it, because again, now we have stuff to talk about. So speaking of that, when we come back, we're going to discuss what exactly it is Bill O'Brien's plan is, because right now I'm confused. So yeah, we'll discuss maybe what his thinking is and some of the moves he's made since he's been given this GM power, and I guess what's next and what I would do if I were Deshaun Watson. So we'll talk about all that stuff right after the break. So stay tuned.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, Bill O'Brien. He's very confusing at this moment in time. Because, again, why trade DeAndre Hopkins? Why? I don't know. I didn't get it. I was confused when it happens. I'm not any less confused a day or so after it's happened. Still kind of trying to piece together like why exactly he would do that. Not exactly making a whole lot of sense to me. But is what it is. it's more or less a done deal, obviously, pending physicals and stuff. So, but, I mean, even if something would happen, they still probably got to get rid of him somehow, because you can't just... Clearly that bridge is burned. Whatever bridge it was, is burned. So, they would have to move on regardless. But, yeah. What are the Texans doing? I don't know. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know in what universe trading, I guess, depending on how you feel about J.J. Watt, who, again, injured, but one of the best of his generation, and how you feel about Deshaun, trading arguably the best player on the team for, what? Again, the second-round pick, and a running back who got replaced by a guy that they traded for mid-season. That's the play here? I don't know. It seems very odd to me. I mean, Hopkins, coming off 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He's the second all-time leading receiver in Texans history, only to DeAndre Johnson in terms of receptions, yards, and touchdowns. He's made 4 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pro. He's been selected to All-Pro teams 3 times. One of the best receivers, again, as we talked about, in football. And the Texans were just like, nah, I'm good. And again, it sounded like he wanted some more money, which, again, I get. Everybody... Because the way a lot of these contracts works, like, you're only the highest paid at your position for a short period of time. Like, I know Julio was trying to get extra money last year, but I think he did. We saw this. Amari just got paid. Like, every time somebody comes up, the same thing happened with Odell. Like, different guys. Whenever somebody comes up, it's their turn to be the highest paid guy at the position. And then when a guy plays at a level that he feels like is better than the highest guy, he wants to get paid like that. And then it's just like a never-ending cycle. So, yeah, that was kind of the report, was that he wanted more money. Which, again, I get. And like I say, he's coming off some great seasons. Even in what many considered to be a down year, which was this past season, he still was able to put up. He was still able to put up over 1,000 yards. He put up 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns, again, in a down season, coming off 2 seasons where he had, in 2017, almost 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns, when some of those games were without Deshaun, because obviously he got hurt halfway through that year. And then in 2018, he had 1,500, almost 1,600 yards and 11 touchdowns. Has had 1,500 yards and 11 touchdowns in his career in a different season in 2015, with, again, quarterbacks that are not nearly as good as Deshaun Watson is currently. So again, yeah. The worst season, I'll take that back. 2016 was the worst season he's had, but in terms of recently. But again, in a down year for him, he's had over 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's not something you trade normally. Now, I'm not Bill O'Brien. Clearly, whatever situation they had behind the scenes was unsalvageable, because that's not, you don't trade a guy with, I believe it was reported that he had 3 years left on his deal. So again, no rush to trade him. You can figure something out, or if you can't figure something out, again, you don't have to trade him. You don't have to trade him the first day of free agency. It can wait. There's no need to rush that, in my opinion. But hey, Bill felt differently, and to each his own. But yeah, so there's 3 years left on his deal. 2 years until they technically have to renegotiate. It just seems odd. But again, this is kind of what Bill O'Brien's done since he was given the reins as a GM. He's given up a lot of draft picks. Traded talent away. Got in some talent in terms of like Laramie Tuttle. But as a team that is without first-round picks in the next 2 drafts, and we'll explain why in a second, you kind of need as much elite talent as you can get. And when you have a guy, you don't really let him go, unless you're going to get a first-round pick back, and they didn't. So, again, just the thought process behind it is a little bit baffling. And if you're any Texan fans out there listening to this, I am sorry for you, because I know many Texan fans on Twitter are kind of over Bill O'Brien stuff, because obviously outside of the stuff he's done as a GM, they started the most recent game, they were up 24-0, and they're losing by halftime. Baffling. he doesn't go for it on fourth and I think, what was it, fourth and 1, fourth and 2 on the other side of the field, but goes for it with a fake punt on his own side of the field. That, again, helped Kansas City cut into the lead and kind of kill whatever momentum the Texans did have in that game. So, yeah, his in-game stuff is a little bit confusing, and then obviously his GM moves are a little bit confusing. This is almost Chip Kelly-esque, you could say, in terms of, I know in back-to-back off seasons, Chip Kelly offloaded. He let go of, he cut Deshaun Jackson because of some speculated gang ties or whatever. I don't know. Then the next offseason, I believe, is when Jeremy Maclin walked, and then they traded LaShawn McCoy for Kiko Alonso, former Oregon guy, so it makes sense why that happened. But again, LaShawn McCoy is still probably the best running back the Eagles have ever had, up until, my boy Miles Sanders gets it together. But yeah, and obviously he had some very good seasons in Buffalo during that time, but again, weird move. Didn't make any sense. Like I said, I think that same offseason let Jeremy Maclin off, traded Nick Foles for Sam Bradford, went out and signed DeMarco Murray and Byron Maxwell. The moves are baffling. That's why he's not in the NFL anymore, because he got too much power. His drafts weren't really that good. Take that back, because he is responsible for, from an Eagles standpoint, from getting Malcolm Jenkins, who they just declined his option, because again, he's an older guy and looking for a lot of money, so can't really pay that much at 32-year-old safety. Though, he's the heart and soul of that defense, you could say, outside of like Fletcher Cox or Brandon Graham. He's always on the field. And in a secondary that needs help, you don't really see the point of getting rid of guys, but that's a different story. But yeah, so brought in him, was responsible for bringing in Lane Johnson and Zach Ertz. So again, not all bad. This was responsible for showing how Nick Foles could succeed, and that obviously helped the Eagles down the line when they brought him back as the backup, and then obviously he went on to win the Super Bowl for them. So not all bad for Chip Kelly's tenure, but obviously his moves as a GM are what led to him getting fired. And you could argue Bill O'Brien's going down a similar path. Not the same exact path, but a similar path. Because if you look at some of the trades he's made in recent years. Okay, we already talked about the DeAndre Hopkins trade. Makes no sense, in my opinion. Traded a third-round pick for Garyon Conley from Oakland, who wasn't really that good beforehand, and then obviously he was all right with the Texans, but again, not nearly the first-round pick that he was pegged to be. Traded Jadeveon Clowney for a third-round pick and 2 linebackers that didn't really do much compared to Jadeveon Clowney, though, again, he was hurt a little bit this year, which isn't that new, but again, I do think their offense could have, the defensive line, especially when J.J. Watt got hurt, probably could have used somebody like Jadeveon Clowney, but they made the playoffs without him, so not all bad. That's probably what's keeping Bill O'Brien around, is the fact that he keeps making the playoffs, though that might be a product of their division more than anything. He gets a trade Jadeveon Clowney, only gets a third-round pick back. Traded Laramie Tunsil. Traded 2 firsts, a backup corner and a tackle, for Laramie Tunsil, Kenny Stills, a 4th this year and a 6th next year. So, again, Laramie Tunsil, they needed tackle help, cool. But still, 2 firsts, probably a little rich for my blood, and then now you have to give him a massive extension when, I guess they could do it this offseason, but maybe next offseason, whenever they decide to do it, because again, you traded 2 firsts for the guy, you're not going to get rid of him. It's the same thing like for the Rams, whenever they decide to talk to Jalen Ramsey, he's going to get all he can get, because you traded first-round picks for him. You're not just going to let him walk. Kind of basically what happened with the Cowboys and Amari Cooper. You can't just let him walk, then it's like, why did you trade a first-round pick for him? So then you got to give him what he wants. So yeah, that trade made no sense. Traded Carlos Hyde for a tackle who they didn't really need, but still seems kind of odd when they didn't really. Carlos Hyde was good for them, but did they really need him? Traded Duke Johnson for a third-round pick, which is weird because then, like I said, and later on they traded for another running back. So it's like, how many running backs do you need to trade for? Then they traded for another running back in David Johnson. So that's odd. So then if you look at their draft picks over the next few years. So I know this obviously this year they have no first round pick. They have a second, 2 seconds now, a third, 2 fourths, a fifth, and a bunch of sevenths. But yeah, like I said, no first round pick. And then obviously next year, no first round pick. And now they need to find a way to replace DeAndre Hopkins somehow. I mean, they tried to do it with Randall Cobb. We'll see. They gave him, 3 years, $27 million. See if that's worth it. Probably not. But again, he was good with the Cowboys last year other than the drop passes. But yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't know what Bill O'Brien's doing. Outside of maybe trying to get himself fired. Though, again, he's a GM, so he probably can't fire him unless the owner steps in. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So yeah, I don't know what he would need to do in order to get fired, but if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm getting out of there as soon as I can, personally. Because again, if they're going to trade away my best receiver without seeing again, not that they have to consult with the quarterback on the moves, but it clearly didn't seem like they ran it by him because he kind of seemed kind of shocked and not exactly thrilled about it. So yeah, if that's going to happen, then how can I trust them to do anything that makes sense for me or for the sake of this team? How can you? Because in my belief, you can't. So again, Deshaun Watson, get out of there before, unless Bill O'Brien is no longer there, then they stay with Houston. But if he's going to be there, I don't know. Because again, he's going to have him out there with what? Unless they draft. I mean, there's still a lot of good receivers in this draft this year, so they can get a good guy in the second round. But again, they need another number one because Kenny Stills, Will Fuller, nor Randall Cobb's the number one receiver, and you can't just thrust everything on the back of a rookie. And a lot of their offense kind of ran through DeAndre Hopkins over the last couple of years, so got to make up for all that production. And I don't know how they're going to do it. But hey, maybe Bill O'Brien has a plan. I hope he has a plan, because if not, people are going to be ridiculing him for this move. They already are, but if this backfires, people are going to be ridiculing him for this move for a very, very long time. Again, Chip Kelly. If you ask any Eagles fan, even after the Super Bowl win, most of them will still say that they can't stand Chip Kelly. And I forget how many years it's been, 4 or 5 year anniversary since he traded LaShawn McCoy came up a couple weeks ago, and it still brings up PTSD for a lot of Eagles fans. So, again, I hope Bill O'Brien has a plan, because he's looking more Chip Kelly-ish by the day. But yeah, so that's that. And after this next break, we're going to come back and discuss what the Bears are going to do at the quarterback position, because it seems like they're probably the last big. You got the Patriots too. But yeah, so then it seems like the Bears have kind of been in talks with a bunch of different teams for trade people and maybe some free agent guys. It seems like they're going to be going the trade route to try to find their next, at least short-term quarterback. So yeah, we're going to discuss what their options are and who I think would be the best option for them right after the break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So, the Bears. What do they do? Because it seems as if all signs are pointing towards Mitchell Trubisky is no longer being the starting quarterback. Now, Probably going to be the backup, but probably there's not much they can do with him. Then obviously, again, they're not going to pick up his fifth-year option, it seems like. Unless, again, something happens this year. He has a weird resurgence, maybe a Ryan Tannehill-esque comeback. But yeah, it seems like from people they were talking to in free agency, they were talking to Teddy Bridgewater. I imagine at least try to have a conversation with Tom Brady. Obviously, it didn't last that long. Maybe reached out to Phillip Rivers. I know they were talking about maybe potentially Derek Carr. Trading with the Raiders to get him. So yeah, it seems like they are trying to do whatever they can to at least give Mitchell some competition. Now, to say they're going to outright replace him, I guess they'll have to wait. Though, I mean, all the off-season stuff got pushed back, so we'll see what happens with that. But we wait till training camp, till the season starts, all that stuff, to try to kind of figure that stuff out. But at the same time, like I said, it doesn't seem like they're just going to give him the keys and let him drive the car at the moment. They're at least going to bring in some other people to compete with him, at the very least. But yeah, so who could those guys be? I had to talk about Derek Carr, potentially, though I don't think that's going to happen unless they're just going to give the keys over to Mariota. Not too sure about that one. Don't know if that's what they're going to do. Jameis is free. It seems like, again, if I don't think Jameis is going to want to come back to Tampa to be a backup, but he may. I know someone tweeted out, and it's probably true. He's probably going to be hoping for his own Ryan Tannehill moment where he can go somewhere, be a backup, and then maybe get a starting role throughout the season because of injury or a bad play, something like that. So maybe he's a guy that could go to the Bucs. I mean, no, not the Bucs. The Bears, just because, I mean, he probably feels like he could beat out Mitch, potentially. Obviously, we don't know. Potentially. I know you got some guys on Twitter for the Bears openly lobbying to get like Tom Brady or Teddy Bridgewater, so you know that they're not exactly thrilled about the quarterback situation, because again, players don't do that unless they think that there's something better out there for them. No, well, just for the team. And I mean, yeah, they kind of got to figure out that one spot, because they went out, let go of Leonard Floyd, but signed Robert Quinn to a decent size extension. What I think it was 5 years, $70 million, something like that. And he was really good for the Cowboys last year, arguably their best pass rusher. Who else? Oh, they signed somebody else on the inside too. Hold on, I'm trying to remember who it was. Well, I know they brought like Trevathan back. Who else did they sign? Was it just Robert Quinn, or am I missing something? No, yes, a 5 year, $70 million. But who else did they? I thought they signed another defensive lineman. I could be wrong about this though. Oh no, maybe they didn't. Okay, so I mean, they just had. I mean, they have Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman. So not necessarily like they needed a guy. I know they let Chase Daniel walk. Oh, they brought in Jimmy Graham, which is not exactly what I was talking about. But I guess that's interesting, because I mean, I don't know if he's better than healthy Trey Burton at the moment, but at least gives them some 2 tight end sets that they could potentially use. I don't know what the plan is. You don't give a guy 2 years, $16 million to not be the starter, you would think. That's decent money for a 33-year-old tight end. But hey, we'll see. But back to the quarterback position. So yeah, so what do they do? Where do they go? So, like I said, Jameis is technically an option. We'll see, because I guess I forgot to mention them, but I think the Chargers, the other team, could potentially be in play for a quarterback. So them, Bears, Patriots, Chargers, the 3 teams where some of these guys can move to if they do get moved. So yeah, so like I said, you got Derek Carr, which is kind of like, I mean, is he better than Mitch? Probably, but I mean, that doesn't really move the needle too much. Andy Dalton, similar kind of boat. A guy that is probably better than Mitch, though, again, did get benched last season for a rookie, basically, and then had to get unbenched because the rookie was terrible. Who was it? Ryan Finley, I believe. And the Bengals started now. I mean, they're going the Joe Burrow route. You would think. Obviously, a lot can change between now and the draft, but you would think that's the route that they're going. So we'll see what goes on with that. But, yeah, it seems like he's on the move, so maybe they could trade for him. But again, how much better is he than Mitch?
I don't really know. Talked about Jameis already. Like, he's probably better than Mitch, but then, I mean, the Jameis experience is one that is probably a wild ride. I know one guy who's a Bucs fan, and I know he was kind of just, it's all up and down. You never really know what's going to happen. I mean, Jameis could start the game off with a pick six and then go on and throw 4 touchdowns and no other picks throughout the rest of the game. It's that every series, really, you don't really know. You're just like, this series could end in a touchdown, this series could end in a pick six. It's a very confusing experience to have to live through. So, I don't know if Bears fans want to deal with that, especially with the defense that they have. They can't really afford a guy that turns the ball over that much. Though, again, did get his eyes fixed. So, maybe that'll change things for him. But at this moment, we don't know if it will. And obviously, we can only go off this past season, and this past season threw a lot of interceptions. So, with a defense as good as the Bears, at least on paper, you don't really need that much from the offense. I mean, you need a little bit more than what they've had. At least what they had this past season. Because the offense was a little bit better 2 seasons ago when they made the playoffs. And potentially could have could have at least got the divisional round if not for a tipped field goal, which many people like to forget. But, I mean, not all Cody Parkey's fault. It got tipped. Did he miss it? Yes. But the ball did get tipped. That probably changed the trajectory a little bit of the ball. Famous double doink. But yeah, so you got that. And then the last name that was an option but wasn't really like a full option until obviously the Panthers made him available is now Cam Newton. I know they were going after Teddy, but like obviously Teddy's going to the Panthers, so that's not happening. But yeah, so Cam Newton. At the very least, Cam Newton is a former MVP. Not obviously not this past season, but again, that's more credentials than guys like Andy Dalton, Jameis, Derek Carr have, and obviously Mitch. He's been to a Super Bowl, lost, but at least he's been. Like I said, was an MVP. Was once one of the most feared, if not the most feared, quarterbacks in the league, just in terms of his everything he could do from. I mean, obviously he wasn't an elite passer, but he had a good arm. He hit the ball where he needed to go. Was obviously a dominant running force. Not like the same as Lamar, because Lamar is just gonna run away from you, run around you, and kind of just shake you on the way, and spin, do all the nice fancy stuff. Cam was just a guy that was gonna run through you, because again he's 6'5" to what was it? He's 6'5". I'm trying to see what are his measurements. 6'5", 250. Like, there's outside defensive linemen, most guys on defense aren't that big. So that's a very rare scenario where the offensive guy and specifically the quarterback is bigger than defensive guys that are trying to tackle him. So that wasn't a whole lot of fun. Obviously, last year, coming off the foot situation, so not exactly great, personally. And even over the course of his career's been a little up and down. If you look from 2013 on, he's went 12-4, then 5-8-1, then 15-1, and won the MVP, then 6-8, then 11-5, then 6-8, and then obviously he didn't really play that much this last year because of the foot. And 2018 he was a little bit hurt. He was a little bit banged up too. Oh wow, I didn't know he only threw 4,000 yards in his rookie year. That's kind of nuts. It was also his most pass attempts, so there is that. But yeah, as a passer, hasn't really been that great overall. Only thrown for more than 30 touchdowns once, and that was the MVP season, obviously. Always been a double-digit interception guy. He's older now. He's 30, going on 31. Beat up. That style of play can only is only sustainable for but so long. Because every year but 2016, he's had over 100 carries, which is not typical for. I was going to say a running back. Typical for a quarterback, and then obviously not a quarterback like him, where unlike Lamar or like Russell Wilson or whatever, they're getting down to avoiding hits. He was getting the ball at the goal line. He was basically a goal line back, going up with guys, going through guys, whatever he needed to do to score. So that wear and tear maybe has started to take its toll on him. But again, had basically all year off. So if his foot's right, the shoulder's back right, everything, maybe that could be useful. And then, at least from the Bears standpoint, that was the most potential, like the highest ceiling, in my opinion, in terms of, again, he's a former MVP. And he's still only 31. I mean, again, different play style, but Brady's, 43? Drew Brees is 40. Like, quarterbacks can play into their 40s. Like, Cam Newton's probably not. But he can at least have a couple good more years left in him, you would think. Like, most quarterbacks aren't done at 31. Most of them can still continue to play and maybe not be as good, but still be decent. But so yeah, it's probably if I were the Bears, that's the one I'm looking to going into the most, and maybe they can wait for the Panthers to cut him because, like we talked about earlier, they lost all leverage, being as they signed Teddy Bridgewater. So now you can't convince me that they're 100% on board with they're going to trade him because again they don't. I don't have to give you anything that good for him because again you created this quarterback situation. I didn't. So the Bears maybe just be able to wait out and cut him and then decide him as a free agent. Because, again, they have everything else in place. All they need is the quarterback. That's literally it. All they need is the quarterback. If they can get the quarterback's position situated, then they're a perennial playoff team. Maybe potentially a Super Bowl contender. Because their defense is on paper is going to be great. So he's neither got to do enough. And I think Cam Newton can do enough. Personally, I think he can just do enough and like I said, he's better than Mitch, which is kind of basically all they're going for at this point. I know they also talked about Nick Foles. Again, that's still in the Andy Dalton, Derek Carr situation where, again, these guys are good. You can get to the playoffs, maybe get a Pro Bowl out of them, but I mean, well, maybe Nick Foles can, technically Nick Foles can win a Super Bowl, but again, he didn't do it as a starter, came in relief duty. But again, at least we know that Cam Newton can be your starting quarterback, win you an MVP, get you to a Super Bowl. We know all that stuff happened. Played all the games. I guess, maybe played only, 15 games that year. Or did he play all 16? No, he played all 16 games that year. So, yeah, he can be that guy, be your starter from day one, get you to a Super Bowl, win you an MVP, all that stuff. Not many of these other guys can say that for their careers. At least the guys that the Bears are being able to go after at this point. So that's what I'm saying. From my perspective, it seems like if I'm going to go after a guy, Cam's probably going to be the guy. I don't know, like Derek Carr, Andy Dalton, Nick Foles are kind of a little bit better maybe, but kind of on par with Mitch, at least if Cam's healthy again. That's kind of going to be the unfortunate part, is that you can't really do a physical on him because coronavirus. So you won't really know if he's healthy until, like I said, maybe May. Then you can fully do the physical, like late April at best. So that's kind of the waiting around up in the air aspect of it is kind of unfortunate, but again, this is a risk you're going to have to take if you're going to bring on Cam Newton. So, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, like I said, I don't know what the Bears are going to do. Maybe we'll see some movement from them tomorrow. But if I'm them, I think I might hold out for Cam. Just because, again, that gives me the highest ceiling. Again, he's hurt. He gets hurt a lot, so that probably lowers their floor a little bit. Because if he's hurt, then you got to go back to Mitch, and then it is what it is. But at least in terms of what he can be, or what he can do, Cam is better than all the other guys available. So I think that's me, I'm probably going to do it. But again, I don't know if the Bears and Ryan Pace are going to want to take that risk. And if they don't, I completely understand. Because again, like I said, Cam's been beat up over the course of his career. So you can't count on him to be out there every game, which is unfortunate at this point. But I mean, he plays hurt, so like you can. But like again, he's had surgeries and stuff the last couple off seasons. So you don't really know how healthy he's going to be. And obviously you can't. The point of this is to have a guy that's going to be around to get you to a Super Bowl. And again, Cam, if he's not on the field, can't do that. So we will see what the Bears decide to do. But then what they do will affect both the Panthers and the Chargers. So, or maybe what the Panthers and Chargers do will affect the Bears. Like whatever happens, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's probably the move I would make from the Bears. But we'll see what they pick. So after this, we're going to come back and talk about the NBA for a little bit more. Players tested positive for the coronavirus, and I think that basically means the season's probably done, in my opinion. But we'll talk about why I feel that, who these new players are, what team they are, and how it could affect the rest of the league, and all that stuff right after the break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, as was tweeted by Woj and Shams and other people earlier today, 4 members of the Brooklyn Nets have tested positive for coronavirus now, which again, highly unfortunate, but not surprising in my personal opinion, just because again, these are human beings just like the rest of us. So, rich people aren't immune to the disease, though. Obviously, they have better access to the tests, so that works for them because again, they can get tested more easily than an average person like you or me or anybody listening to this could. Just because I know of some people that have tried and have gotten turned away because their symptoms didn't match up or they haven't been in contact with someone that tested positive. So that's the unfortunate part about the disease, is since a lot of people are asymptomatic, I believe is the term, or basically you can have it without symptoms. And I think Katie said he didn't have any symptoms. Mitchell said he didn't have any symptoms. Gobert said he didn't have any symptoms. Said he still felt good. I think Christian Wood, who was the third guy to test positive in the NBA, said the same thing. In total, 3 of the Nets said they were without symptoms at this moment. Only one guy said, I think he had some minor aches, which is one of the symptoms. But yeah, so a lot of people are just walking around with the virus, don't even know they have it, which is kind of the unfortunate part of it, which is why it's probably going to be here for a while, because until there's more tests readily available and more people can get tested, then more people know whether or not to quarantine themselves, because they will know whether or not they have the disease. It's kind of the issue at the moment, is that many people don't know that they have it, so they're just walking around as if they don't have it, and then here they are, and they have it, and now it's an issue. So yeah, so that's kind of the problem with now. But yeah, so 4 guys from the team tested positive. I think I believe they said they took the test after they came back from their San Francisco trip, which is interesting because I know San Francisco, I believe, is one of the cities that's on like a complete and total lockdown, just with all the cases they have and the lack of testing that they have been able to do, which again is probably safer than again just having everybody out and about. At least if everyone's shut down and can't really leave the house outside of the essentials or to go to a doctor or whatever, then in theory you wouldn't be able to pass the symptoms on to other people that are maybe more, where there's a better likelihood of stuff happening to them if they were to catch it than the normal person. But hey, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so with them testing positive and now, so that I know the Warriors said they haven't tested anybody yet, but there's a possibility that they could have, because they could have had it before they played them. The last team they played was the Lakers, so I know all the Lakers, they said, are getting tested tomorrow. Which, and that's the issue with the test, is we haven't developed a test yet, at least in the United States, where it's quick. Like, it's going to take a few days to get back to people. So now basically just everybody that's been with the Lakers has to quarantine themselves for the next 14 days, which, again, is unfortunate because, again, they didn't know before then, so that they've been not out and about, because basically, again, most of the country is more or less shut down at this point. But yeah, so now they gotta worry about who they've been in contact with, who they've interacted with over the last week or so since they played the Nets. Now that's an issue. What else? Again, like I said, the Warriors got to get themselves checked out. It's just all, like I said, it's all bad. We're only going to find out, again, since it seems like only rich people can get checked, we're going to find out more and more athletes. I know, I think, 2 guys from the Yankees minor league system have it now. Like, we're only going to find out more and more guys have it as, again, I guess, 1, the tests become more readily available, and 2, more athletes get tested because now they can. But yeah, so then teams that they played recently, because they were going to play the Warriors, but that game got canceled. So then when they flew back, they got checked. So then anybody the Lakers got to get checked. People from the Bulls probably got to be checked. Though I think they might have already been checked because they played the Jazz. Spurs probably, Grizzlies, Celtics maybe. Celtics I think probably again already got checked because of the Jazz. So some of these teams kind of overlap with people that have already had to deal with the issues. But yeah, now I'm basically saying we're going to get to a point where basically every team and every player in the league, coach, staff, whatever, is going to have to get checked. Just because of the fact that you don't know who does and who doesn't have it in the league. So, again, then we're going to have to check everybody. And then, again, as more people come back positive, it's just the more and more chance that the league and the season and all that stuff just gets pushed back. Because, again, like I said, they already have 7 guys that have tested positive. And that's just because these are guys... Well, 1, because the 2 on the Jazz, 1 on... what's Christian Wood on the Pistons? I don't know this guy. No, I made the point to point out that it was James tweeted out that he was he gave Gobert that work before he tested positive. But he is on the Pistons. So I guess no one else from the Pistons got it that we know of. But yeah, like I said, as the tests only become more and more readily available, we're going to find out more guys have it. Not just, maybe not in other sports. Like I don't imagine that many NFL guys may have, just because they haven't really had to leave their house that much recently. Though again, a lot of regular people just walk around every day with it, so maybe they'll have it. Maybe a couple MLB guys might get it. Hockey, MLS, same thing. But it just goes to show just how important it was that the OKC doctor was on top of Rudy Gobert. Because literally without finding out about Gobert and then like that game getting shut down, and then there's a good chance that up until maybe right now, teams would still be playing games. And then like I said, if 4 people from the Nets had it last week, then who knows who they could have infected by this point. Though one of them's KD, so he's on the bench. So he probably could pass it on to more of his teammates, and then they would pass it on to more players. Like it would have been a bit like there would have been potentially hundreds. I mean, I guess there's only hundreds of players, but there's potentially like 50 to 100 guys that could have ended up with it. But like I said, and when after they got tested and stuff and checked, and like in a week or 2, we would have found out that maybe over 100 guys in the league would have had it. If, like I said, they didn't shut down the games. Because, and again, the NBA shutting down the games kind of led to everybody else shutting the things down. Because, again, no one... I mean, obviously, we knew it was bad over in China. We knew it was bad in South Korea and just Japan. Talked about already pushing the Olympics back. We knew it was bad in Italy. Though we didn't know it was this bad at this time a week ago. But we knew it wasn't good. But, yeah, just like the NBA shutting down kind of got everybody else to shut down. And then also probably perked people's ears up. I know a lot of people, I mean, even still, as we talked about, we saw this weekend, people are still going out for St. Patrick's Day. So, again, the numbers will skyrocket over the next week or 2 or month as people can continue to get tested. And, again, we see the drawbacks from, again, all the activity people had over the weekend and all of last week. And, I mean, well, I guess we'll see even... Well, I'm interested to see what Florida's numbers look like, just because, again, even to this day, people are still going hanging out on beaches, doing public events, just because Florida really hasn't shut down, because there's so much tourism that goes on down there. I mean, again, they're not the only people that can't really afford to shut down, but, they can afford to shut down, because there's too many people that eat out all the time and hang out on the beaches and stuff that Florida got. I mean, Florida's just like a state that just kind of does its own thing, so it doesn't surprise me. But again, a lot of Florida people aren't necessarily taking this as seriously as they could be at the moment. And again, it won't happen until we see when once people can start getting tested for real and we see the real numbers. Well, some of the real numbers. Again, we'll never really know exactly how many people had it because there's a chance people already had it and have kicked it or passed it along to somebody else. So it's hard to know for certain. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But yeah, so the NBA shutting down kind of got everybody shut down because, again, had that not happened, who knows how many people would have been infected with the disease or the virus at this point in the NBA, then also who would have gotten infected all across the country. Because, again, that would have, without the NBA shutting down, then you probably won't have, like, the curfews and the social distancing rules and, like, shut down different bars and restaurants and stores that have happened all across the country. And we probably wouldn't have multiple. I guess what we have is almost at this point a daily briefing from the president talking about and trying to update us and having doctors and CEOs and different people come and talk and speak and whatever. But again, that wouldn't be happening if the NBA didn't shut down. So again, shout out to Adam Silver. But at this point, 7 guys have already tested positive. I don't really see a likely scenario where they come back unless we go into full South Korea mode. With South Korea, I mean or China, where there were. I'm talking about they're testing any and everybody, so relatively soon if you have it or not. Their quarantine stuff is different. So like if you tested positive, they're taking people from their home. Well, not taking people from their homes, but like they have like the fever stuff where, like fever checks where if you go into any store or any building or wherever, you get your temperature checked, and if it's too high, then boom, you're off to like a fever. Like a fever hospital or fever hotel or wherever where they house all the people with like that are over fever, and then obviously get them tested and check to see if they have the disease or not. So yeah, they have that. Like I said, they built new hospitals to house more people because again, as currently constructed, we probably don't have enough hospital beds in the country to deal with this, and plus all the because it's not like all the other disease and all the other injuries and issues people deal with on a daily basis shut down. Like, that's still going on. We just have, obviously, this. So that's taking more priority at the moment, and that's kind of the issue, and that's going to run to the issue that we're going to have. But yeah, so unless we go to extreme measures like other countries, which doesn't seem like we're doing at this point, we may have to. But by then, it might already be a little too late. It might take us into May, June. I know the president was talking about July or August till potentially this stuff gets back normal. And then even some docs have said that it may take a year, maybe more, to get everything back. Because, I mean, it just seems like, due to the fact that the testing isn't as good, just, like, so many people in the country are going to get it at some point or another. Not everyone's going to die, which is the lucky part, but there's so many people who are going to get it. So just, it's going to take a while for the disease to kind of kick itself and be done. Or, like I said, they develop early stages of a vaccine, but that's not going to be ready for over a year. And even then, once they get it, it's still going to be so expensive. Most people can't afford it, and that's going to be a whole mess. But yeah, so with the NBA having so many guys already having it, I just don't see how the NBA comes back at this point. Again, unless the country goes into overdrive and trying to kick this thing, which I don't think they will. Though, I guess, I'll wait and see if that happens. But unless that happens, and we go to extreme measures to get it kicked out of the country, or trying to get the disease like tamed down in the country, I don't see how we're going to be able to start up any sports league before like June at the earliest. And then, if it's not before June or July, by then people may just be over it. And I mean, not necessarily the owners and the players because they're going to lose money and stuff like that. But it just seems like there's a chance that they just might be like, yeah, no, bump it. Because again, you got to plan out the whole next season if that kind of stuff happens. Because again, you can't start the season back up again in October. You got to plan out the whole next season, and you got to figure things out, figure out the schedule. It would be a big mess. And like I said, as more tests happen, more people are going to test positive, and then they're going to have to do the whole 14 days, and it's going to be a whole thing. So I honestly believe there's a chance the NBA and maybe other sports are done for this year at least. Next year, hopefully everything will be all right. Hopefully it doesn't affect football. Oh my lord, if it's still going on to September, I'm going to be so sick. But like I said, NBA wise, it might be a wrap. It might be a wrap because we're only going to find out as the days and weeks go by that more and more players have it as they continue to get tested. Seeing as it only seems like rich people and athletes can get tested at this point. So at least they'll know. Good for them. The common person won't. But hey, good for them. At least maybe that'll show people that, hey, this thing's for real. Even I think there's a chance Drake might have it because there was a picture with Katie and Drake hanging out on March 11th, so that's like last week. Yeah. Not impossible. So that'd be kind of a mess. I think I imagine he's already gotten tested if once he found out the news. So, and obviously Canada's if he's living in Canada, obviously he's from Canada, but that doesn't mean he's staying in Canada at the moment. But yes, I know their healthcare is a little bit different than the States. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, no, whole mess. This is all going to be a big mess. And hopefully people will be able to listen, wash their hands, social distance, self-quarantine if they're sick, all that's fun stuff. And then we'll be able to kick it faster. I think South Korea is starting up, like their basketball league's starting up again. China, I think their basketball leagues are starting back up because they've kind of like tamed the virus a little bit. And China's been a while, but South Korea, they basically just went hard at it for like a month. And now they're going to be back to relative normality. So that's what we're looking at here, guys. If we can just do this for a couple weeks to a month, nice self-quarantine, isolation, social distancing, all that stuff, which is not going to happen, but wishful thinking, then by summertime, we could be back to normal. Not going to happen again because I don't think America's a little bit more stubborn, but it could. It could. But yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I just think with the days, more days come, more athletes, more celebrities are going to come out and say they have it just because, again, they're the only people that can get tested. So there is that. But speaking of that, the MLB did a good thing in terms of trying to make it right with the workers for their respective like arenas and teams and stuff like that. So we'll talk about what they did and how other teams other teams and players have already done this, but I guess they haven't done it uniformly. And I hope this can be an example to set for the future for a different sports league. So we'll talk about that stuff right after this break. So stay tuned.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Network. So, this is from Jeff Passan, the ESPN, and again, shout out to the MLB for doing this, because again, well, not again, but obviously different players, different teams, different organizations throughout the NBA, NFL, well, maybe not NFL because they haven't started working, but NBA, other sports leagues have talked about doing stuff, whether it's like donating to the workers or helping set up meals so that like kids that may not have the best situation set up at home can still get since they'll eat all stuff. I know Steph Curry's been one. He's volunteered with I think like $1 million meals or $1 million worth of meals, something like that. I know Zion talked about paying for the workers since they obviously won't be working, like the arena workers, since they obviously will be off during this time with nothing going on, and no way to make up for it. Though again, the Pelicans organization said they couldn't, which was stupid, but whatever. Different, like I know the Nets, a lot of NBA teams have talked about doing this, which is obviously the right thing to do. This should be a uniform thing, in my personal opinion, because again, I mean, not just for these arena workers. There's a lot of jobs that are going to have to shut down due to this, or at least close for a short period of time, because not everybody can do not everybody can do their jobs from home. That's the nature of some of these
industries and jobs that you can't just do it remotely for everything. So obviously the ones that can are, but the ones that can't either have to come in and risk getting the disease, or they have to shut down, and then obviously these guys won't get paid. And I know the government has talked about different plans to give Americans anywhere between $1 and $4 million. Then for at least all adults, and give some kids some money, just so I guess to help out the parents and stuff, because obviously now all the schools are shut down basically, so now they're home more often. So you got to figure out how you care for them and take care of them, all that stuff. So yeah, this is a whole mess. But I will give MLB credit because they did this uniformly. So this is from Jeff Passan of ESPN. All 30 MLB teams on Tuesday pledged $30 million total, so I guess $1 million from each team, to help cover the lost wages of ballpark employees who have been affected by the postponement of the big league season due to the coronavirus crisis. Motivated by the desire to help some of the most valuable members of the baseball community, each club has committed $1 million. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred said in a statement, the individual clubs will be announcing more details surrounding the support effort in their local communities. The timing of these announcements will vary because of the need to coordinate with state and local laws, as well as collective bargaining obligation in an effort to maximize the benefits realized by each group of employees. I am proud that our clubs came together so quickly and uniformly to support these individuals, I should say, who provide so much to love the game. And obviously, we talked about the opening day was originally scheduled for March 26th, got pushed back 2 weeks. Then obviously Manfred said that at best games will start in mid-May, and that's again it's probably with no fans, and that's based on CDC recommendations and stuff like that. I don't see that happening again unless we go full South Korea on this, and just completely do our best to kick the virus. Which again, Americans are stubborn; they don't like being told what to do. So I don't think that's going to happen too quickly. I mean, it may eventually happen because again, they may not have any choice. Then we may get put on a government, a nationwide shutdown soon if these numbers don't improve. But I know, like I said, some states, San Francisco is doing it, some other cities are doing it. I mean, most cities already have curfews, or most states that say already have curfews, so you can't go out past 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. wherever. But yeah, so I give the MLB credit for doing this together, because like we talked about, you see this player here or this team here from the NBA will do it. Maybe some NFL guys have kind of pledged to help some people out, but it's one of those situations where the teams eventually came together, but not all of them were willing to do this as a cohesive unit, and the MLB were. So again, I praise them and give them credit for being able to do that, because again, as we've seen in other sports leagues, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do, and I mean, it's not even just sports leagues. For companies in the country, it's not an easy thing to do. A lot of these guys, a lot of companies and stuff are based on the idea of trying to make as much money as you can. So because of that, they try to cut costs and lower their finances in whatever ways they can. And one of the ways is kind of not everybody's in the country, depending on your job. Again, because if you're working remotely, then you're still working, so they have to pay you. But if you're not, then not everybody's getting paid the full sick leave, or not everybody's getting paid their normal. I think what was the, not Whole Foods, but there was a story of a company that was telling the healthy people to volunteer and give up their sick days for the sick people, which is wild because again, the corporation can just give those guys, allow them to get paid sick leave. Because again, as many doctors and people have said, basically everybody's going to get this at some point. So now all these people that gave up their sick days, now when it's their turn to be sick, they won't have the sick days in order to get paid. This is the whole vicious cycle. So yeah, so I'm saying, as we've seen across the country, it's not an easy thing to do for companies. And some companies have, some companies haven't, so it just depends on the company. But it's not an easy thing to do to have these companies just willingly give, in what their mind is just free money away. Like I said, they're just giving
They're paying all the sick leave. They're paying people not to be at their office, not to be at their jobs, which is not something that they want to do, but obviously this is a weird situation we're in, so they have to do it. Or I guess, and technically they don't have to do it because not everybody is. But like I said, the MLB teams came together and like, look, we know how much these ballpark workers mean to like the everyday life of the MLB and help make it so that everyone can be safe and healthy and eat and have beers and other drinks and stuff and make sure everything goes smoothly on a game-to-game basis. So, and obviously they're going to be the ones hurt by this because, again, most of these guys don't have other jobs, and even if they try to get other jobs, one, no other jobs are hiring really because, well, who's working? Or if you are working, you're working remotely, so that's kind of a mess. And then also, like, unemployment's hard to get because, like, some people, like, may not... I know, again, I saw this on Twitter, so take it with a grain of salt. But there was a guy that was trying to get unemployment because apparently they said that he wasn't going to be working anymore. But when they talked to the employer, they said that he was on a 0-hour schedule. It's basically the same thing, but because of that, he wasn't technically laid off, so now he can't get unemployment. And like I'm saying, this is just the ways in which companies and corporations try to finesse the everyday person. And like I said, I appreciate the MLB not stooping to that level, in my opinion. Because again, they easily could have. They could have been like, they're not working, why are we paying them? Like I said, they know how much these checks and these salaries mean to these people, so it's only right that they compensate them properly. Because again, like I said, without them, these games would not go on as smoothly as they do. And again, like I said, there's not really many things they can do in order to supplement the money they would be making. And like I said, we're in a weird scenario. So they should be able to get the money back somewhere. I know a lot of like airlines and different people or different corporations are trying to get bailouts from the government. So like I'm saying, they can get bailouts, but the average American worker can't get a bailout because that's just not possible. So appreciate that. I know who else. Previously, Houston National center field George Springer that pledged $100,000 to ballpark workers, and Trevor Bauer, who had raised nearly $25,000 in order to have a charity Sandlot game. Bregman also pledged to donate $1,000 quarantine food kits to Houston area children. And also the MLB continues to negotiate with the MLB Players Association about potential payment to players, service time considerations, and other similar considerations that could largely depend on when the season resumes. The league's uniform player contract includes a provision that allows Manfred to suspend contracts and payment of them in case of national emergency, which, obviously has been declared. But also, I guess the biggest thing now is just figuring out how to compensate the minor league guys who received their last pay cake at the end of 2019 season and were paid only a per diem during spring training. So, I figure out how to pay them. I know there's some stories out there about guys that are told to stay healthy and all that stuff, but they're also like not getting paid. So it's like, you can't get another job because you have to basically be ready and willing to give that up whenever to go back to whenever the MLB season starts. But at the same time, they're not paying you, so you need money to pay bills, rent, all that stuff. Because it doesn't seem like there's not a uniform like, rent suspended, all that stuff, mortgage payments, whatever. That's not happening yet. Not to say it won't, but it's not happening yet. So these guys got to get paid somehow. So MLB got to figure that part out. But again, the ballpark worker stuff, good for them. I commend them for it. Because, again, this is not something they had to do. But not to see them do it because, again, it's just the little guys. As much as the big corporations are getting screwed out of money, the little guys are getting screwed too. Because at least big corporations can offer or can ask for bailouts and money from the government and stuff. Little people try to ask for that. They may get turned down. So, again, commend the MLB for doing the right thing. But yeah, that'll do it for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys for listening, as always. Hopefully, the NFL continue to provide us with content because, again, no sports, so we got to figure out something to do, or something to talk about, I should say. But, again, there should be enough stuff still going on with free agency and trades and stuff that we still have stuff to talk about. And unfortunately, like I said, there's going to be more athletes that test positive for COVID-19. So, that's the thought. We'll like I said, we're working through this together. We'll figure out
what's going on, what can be discussed, what can be talked about, all that fun stuff. So, like I said, come here. We can get through this all together. But yes, again, I want to thank you guys for listening. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. If you could as well, give us a 5-star rating, write a nice review. Very appreciated, very helpful. See what you guys like, what you guys dislike, all that fun stuff. Again, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so we can talk, we can chat, we can discuss, we can debate. Like I said, we're going to have a lot of free time on our hands, respectively. So we'll have a lot of time to be on social media, which, I mean, may or may not be a good thing. But again, with that, we'll be able to discuss and debate a lot of things, because what else is there to do at this moment in time? Again, no live sports on. Outside of, again, the NFL trying to do everything they can to provide us with stuff to talk about, and which I am very thankful for. But again, may need a little bit more than just the NFL, but that's all we got right now, so I'm not going to complain, because we could not have that, and then that would be a complete mess. But at least we have that for the time being. So, yeah, that would do it for me here today. This has been my time. And before I close out, I just want to make sure I remind everybody, wash your hands, stay safe. If you're sick, don't leave. Try to get tested if you can. Hopefully there'll be more test kits available soon, so then more regular people can get tested, not just athletes and celebrities. Don't touch your face. All that fun stuff. Again, if you're near somebody that's sick, try to quarantine them in a different part of the house than when you're in, just because, again, a lot of this stuff can live on countertops and surfaces and stuff like that for hours. So shared common spaces with sick people is not the best thing at the moment. So again, try to do everything, and eventually we will get through this, I think. Obviously, not a doctor, so I'm more wishful thinking than anything, but I have faith in the American people to a degree. Not a lot of faith, but a little bit of faith that eventually everyone will realize, like, oh, how serious this is, and then we'll be able to get it right, and then we could be South Korea or be China or Japan, whoever. The people have kind of, I mean, maybe not China, because it took them a while, but South Korea. South Korea was able to kick this thing in like a month and a half. Again, they took extreme measures, but that might be what needs to be necessary. So again, self-quarantine, use your FaceTime, catch up on TV shows, catch up on movies. Like I said, call, text your friends, so you're not, again, you may not see them, but at least you can talk to them. It's 2020. We have ways to communicate. Don't worry about it too much. And again, this will be over hopefully sooner than we think. But again, it's going to take all of us to get through this. So yeah, that has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.